Hey, this is Joshua with New Review, coming at you with a new review of the Rooster Teeth first exclusive series, Day 5. A little bit of background of Day 5. Day 5 takes place in similar world to ours, only now you can't sleep. If you fall asleep, you die. And so, of course, the sleep apocalypse occurs at night when everyone's asleep, and those who are still awake were those who were awake at the time of the big sleep. And the series follows Jake, Sam, Ellis, and what's the girl's name? I always forget the girl's name. Uh, and Allie, all of whom are played by all of whom were awake for one reason or another when the sleep apocalypse happened. Um, and the big exploration they're having is how to survive in a world without sleep, and a lot of them turn to drugs. Actually, Sam and Jake. And Jake was actually awake on a meth bender. Sam had been up late waiting for his dad to come home, who's a night manager. Allie was a doctor on the night shift, and Ellis was a pilot flying a late night flight. And that's how they survived the apocalypse, and they were spending the next few days either partying, trying to survive, or trying to figure out what happened. And Ellis, in particular, was trying to find out what happened. Eventually, they all hook up and are trying to figure out what's going on. And the series is a very interesting exploration of the world that builds up around it. One episode they had explored a group of people, or in this case an individual, but is indicative of a group of people who stay awake by causing pain to themselves. They're called succubus. And it was a really interesting thing to watch. Another really interesting episode was they were at this morgue in Texas, and at this morgue, people were just partying the night away. And actually, Barbara had a very interesting cameo in that episode, and you get the sense, and she's actually talked about it, how the character seems that could be a figment of Jake's imagination, and Jake has a very interesting exploration of his own family dynamic, because his parents got divorced and his mom or dad remarried and had a daughter who was his half sister. And actually, a line that the girl says was a recycled joke from Laser Team that they repurposed for Day 5, which I really do enjoy because it's made by Rooster Teeth, so it has a comedic through line. But additionally, there's also a lot of high stakes because it's a post-apocalyptic thing, which is something I really like. And a cool thing about a couple of the actors, Jesse C. Boyd, who plays Jake, and Davy J., who plays Ellis, were both characters on The Walking Dead. Jesse was actually one of the wolves in season 6, and season 5. Davy J. was one of the 5. Yeah, 5. He was one of the claimers. So it's really interesting seeing them get much bigger roles, much bigger speaking roles in this series, because they're both important leads. Anyways, after a while, they're originally on their way to Dallas, but they divert. One goes to Dallas, one group goes to Dallas, the other goes to Austin, because Allie hears her girlfriend Lex, who's another doctor who left to go to a doctor who's doing a sleep study at the time. And so and it says that there's a treatment for it, um, which so they split off. Ellis goes to Dallas, and Jake, Allie, and Sam go to Austin, which is where Rooster Teeth is based out of. So it's a nice little meta joke. Um, anyways, and so Allie's group ends up at the treatment facility that was doing the sleep study, and it turns out that it's a sleep drug that gets you just on the edge of full sleep. And the test subjects to try to perfect the drug were children who all died. And that creates a large rift between Jake, Allie, and Sam, and Lex and Dr. Abrams, who's played by Shannon McCormick, who Rooster Teeth fans know as Agent Washington or Ozpin. And it was really interesting seeing him in a much more serious, darker role than either of those are, or any of his shorts or other appearances, because he's tended, like with everyone else, play a comedic character. Yeah, actually, I think. Oh, it was a brother. Okay. Yeah, so the brother of Martin Sheen, Joe Estevez, actually was a character in there. He was a newscaster. And it was really interesting seeing him because it turns out he was another one of the succubus. And we meet him in the Ellis storyline as well as a character named Bill Beavers, who's played by Rooster Teeth founder Joel Heyman. And I really like Day 5 because they find these other characters. It's like sometimes minor characters, sometimes one-off characters, and they're either played by Rooster Teeth employees or other actors who are out in the area that they've never worked with, or actors that frequent Rooster Teeth productions. And Bill Beavers was one of those characters who was like a one-off, who was a Rooster Teeth character person, and that was a great storyline to follow. Barbara, with her cameo as Flip, was a great addition, I think. And they try to, and Ellis's group tries to figure it out. They end up giving up, going to sleep, and it turns out one of the people that hooked up with Ellis's group can sleep, and that sets at the end of the season. That sets up a whole mystery for the next season, which they're actually started to explore this season with people, and it seems that her boss is trying to get her to take care of those who aren't one of their group, and trying to stop those who can't sleep, and try to get it so that they are the only people left on the planet, or at least the United States, it seems. Right now it's really localized to the United States, but I'd really like to see the world around a little bit more than just stories. And this season, it's been just one thing after another. And great thing that this series uses is they use flashback sequences or scenes in episodes every so often. So, for instance, one of the first season flashbacks was of the first succubus we meet. I think they call them succubuses. Anyways, and it was just basically his backstory of how he became what he was, and that was really cool. And this season they've done a couple of flashbacks so far. The first one was the first episode. It explored Ellis on the first day of the epidemic. He meets this Australian pilot who is trying to find a safe zone where you can sleep. And he brings us into the wider world as it is. And then this entire first episode that Day 5 has, that episode is called. Should have had this up earlier. Manifest Destiny, and it's Ellis walking to where the center of the broadcast was coming from that seemingly warned people because an emergency broadcast came up instantaneously as the sleepocalypse happened. And we see him kind of trying to maintain his sanity, and it seems like he's going with the pain route, which isn't always good, which, as we saw with the succubus in the last season, he became just like this vicious murderer. It doesn't end well because he nearly killed a new character that they brought in. And she becomes a member of the group, and turns out she's a war correspondent who's been seeing all sorts of crazy stuff, and she's been trying to find what's going on. And it ends with her stealing some of their sleep drug, which they used to help Ellis from killing her. The next episode was Oasis. We meet back up with our Australian pilot, who turned out to be a former, we find out later, a UN worker for the UN who worked in refugee camps. I think it's this episode or next one. And he meets up with this woman who we meet in the flashback, who is a night nanny who was working the night of the sleepocalypse. And the warning came up. I have a feeling the woman and the baby that she was at the house of are both dead at this point. But she's doing everything she can to make sure her son lives. She's going through this safe zone that she heard of. And this is the entire crux of the episode. This Australian and woman and her child are trying to get to the safe zone, and Jake, Sam, Ellis, and Allie are trying to find this reporter so that they can also possibly find the sleep zone. And they go to a military base to connect to the internet to try to get more information from the AP. And they find it, and they're trying to find a way to get to the sleep zone just to see if it's real. And the episode ends with the Australian and the woman and her child getting let in, and with our main group getting captured by unknown assailants. And then the next episode, which is called Lucid, it's following the exploration of the Sleep Oasis camp that's been set up, and also the capture of our main heroes. There was no flashback this episode. It opened, and I'm going to try to, in future reviews, separate between our main group and the sleep safe zone group. So our main group, they're captured by some guys in military uniforms, and they seem a little off. Their leader, played by Jake Busey, who did a fantastic job, I'd have to say. They've seemingly found the cure, and Ellis and the group just explained to them that they're trying to get to this place where they can sleep, and they can help those guys out, but they just want to go. And he says they found the cure, and he cites this Austro-Hungarian soldier from World War I who got shot in the head and was able to live for 40 years without sleep. And they did something similar, only they lobotomized themselves, and now they've got the mental capacity of toddlers, and since they have guns, that is a horrible combination. And on top of that, we meet up with Dr. Abrams, aka Shannon McCormick, who's... Oh wait, no, there was a flashback. He was following the girl Ellis's group connected with, and she's doing the thing that she'd been doing instead of dealing with a colony of survivors. she'd basically been hunting people on a bingo list. Um, and the last thing on her bingo list that she circles is doctors. And she's going for very specific kills and very specific types of individuals. Um, so that's ominous. Anyways, his facility had been destroyed apparently, or they lost it, and he was looking for a place to work, and he was captured by these soldiers. And he was nicknamed Einstein, and he was helping them lobotomize. However, the original method of lobotomization was using a rifle. Um, and Jake Busey's character is very impatient, very impulsive. He takes Sam to his office to try to convince him to be the leader of his armies while he became president of the United States, or what was left of it, planning this whole grand battle strategy that was probably not even needed. And Shannon's character, Dr. Abrams, is starting to perform a lobotomy on Jake, but he's not actually going to. But it turns out he didn't plan on doing it. And they kill the two guards, and they try to get. And the other group, who was separated and being prepared to be lobotomized, were trying to get away from the lobotomized soldiers. Eventually, they do. Eventually, they get Jake or Sam, and it turns out that Jake's face is forgettable to the lobotomized, who Abrams say won't last the week, which is unfortunate because they tried, and now that attempt was a failure. And yeah, that's basically Lucid for our main group. Our other group is just trying to figure out what's going on, why this is working, how it works for them to be able to sleep and not die. And at the end of the episode, they get to sleep and they don't die. And yeah, and our main group also got away on a plane after tricking Jake Busey and running him over with the van, which was kind of funny. Again, it's a Rooster Teeth production, so they got to have something that's a little funny. And so the last episode that we've gotten so far, Circadian Rhythm, which is episode 4. It's just that our main group's on a plane trying to figure things out, trying to figure out how to spend the time instead of just, using sleep drug. Jake and the new girl decide to have sex, which doesn't end up working out. Jake, Allie, Ellis, and mostly Jake, Allie, and Sam go through withdrawal because they've been off of drugs for a long time. And on top of that, Ellis is having some hallucinations. And there's this confrontation between Allie and Abrams, and it kind of stems from Allie's girlfriend Lex, who joined Abrams' group to try to figure out a cure. And it started out with a really interesting flashback that kind of explored Allie's relationship with Lex, and the inclusion of a fish, which was a very nice, touching way to get a slice of life pre-sleepocalypse. And then our sleep camp group, the Australian pilot who also worked in refugee camps for the UN, he goes to get some stuff for the Sandman, and it's like frivolous stuff. And he's supposed to go to new coordinates because apparently the sleep camp moves depending on where the Sandman needs them. And this episode ends when you're thinking, oh, our group is going to meet up with them. No, all we see is the ring of dead bodies of those who, if I sleep close enough to the oasis, it'll rub off on me. And we also get to meet the Sandman for a brief moment. So this series is really good. If you don't have a Rooster Teeth membership, you guys should get it. It's worth the money. It's not that expensive, and the content that is first exclusive is very, very good, especially day 5. They also had Crunch Time, but that only lasted a season and they sunsetted it, which is unfortunate. But you guys should check it out. It's really fantastic. This is Joshua with New Review, signing off.